Have you ever stopped to think about why on March 17th the whole world wears green, fills the streets with parades and celebrations, and even famous monuments are lit up with this color? It seems like just another party. But behind this tradition lies one of the most fascinating stories in Christianity, the story of St. Patrick, the man who changed the fate of Ireland. What does a young man kidnapped by pirates, a miraculous conversion, and a simple three-leaf clover have in common? Today, we're going to dive into the life of this great saint, and understand how he not only evangelized an entire nation, but also left a legacy that has lasted for centuries. Before we get started, subscribe to the channel and give this video a like to help it reach more people. I want to know, did you already know about St. Patrick's story, or have you only heard about the celebrations? Let me know in the comments below, because your participation is really important. Now let's get going on this incredible journey of the patron saint of Ireland. St. Patrick was born in the late 4th century around the year 385 in Britain, which back then was part of the Roman Empire. His real name was Maewyn Sacat, and he came from a Christian family. His father was a deacon and his grandfather a priest. But despite this, Patrick didn't take his faith very seriously in his youth. Everything changed when, at 16, he was kidnapped by Irish pirates during a raid on his town. He was taken by force to Ireland, a land ruled by pagan tribes where he was sold as a slave. For years he worked tending flocks, isolated and suffering in the mountains, facing cold, hunger, and mistreatment. During this time of suffering, something amazing happened. Patrick turned completely to God. He himself reported that he began to pray intensely, even praying up to 100 times a day. That faith that once seemed distant now became his only hope. The young enslaved man was no longer the same. God was shaping in him a strong, persevering heart, prepared for something much greater. After 6 years as a slave in Ireland, Patrick had a dream that would change his life forever. In it, God told him his freedom was near and that a ship was waiting to take him home. Without hesitation, he ran away. He crossed miles of unknown lands, facing dangers and uncertainty until he reached the coast. When he found a ship about to leave, he asked to board, but was refused by the crew. However, before he gave up, one of the sailors changed his mind and let him on board. After a long and difficult journey, Patrick finally returned home, reuniting with his family who thought he was dead. But even though he was safe, his heart was restless. Sometime later, he had another dream. In it, he saw the Irish people calling to him, asking him to come back and teach them about God. It was Christ himself sending him back to the land where he had been enslaved. Patrick understood. God had a greater purpose for him. The suffering he endured was not in vain. He accepted his mission and prepared for what would be the greatest challenge of his life. Patrick didn't go straight back to Ireland. First, he studied his faith and became a priest. Years later, he became a bishop, and then, he was ready to answer God's call, to return to the land where he was once a slave, not as a prisoner, but as a messenger of the good news. Ireland back then was mostly pagan tribes, and spreading Christianity was a huge challenge. But Patrick wasn't scared. He had a brilliant strategy. Instead of fighting the local culture, he used things people already knew to explain the Christian faith. The most famous example of this is the shamrock, which he used to explain the Holy Trinity. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, 3 persons in one God. With courage and wisdom, Patrick traveled all over Ireland, preaching, converting pagans, baptizing, ordaining priests, and building churches. His work was so impactful that, in just a few years, practically the whole island became Christian. But his mission wasn't easy. He faced resistance from druids and pagan kings, suffered persecution and even assassination attempts. However, his unwavering faith and his love for the Irish people made him persevere until the end. Patrick didn't just spread Christianity to a nation, he changed its history forever. Over the centuries, many legends have grown around St. Patrick, making him even more important to the Irish people. One of the most famous stories says he drove all the snakes out of Ireland. The story goes that he climbed to the top of a hill, raised his staff, and with the power of prayer all the snakes were thrown into the sea. But here's something interesting. Scientists say there were never any snakes in Ireland. So, what does this legend really mean? Many scholars believe the snakes represent paganism, and the story symbolizes the conversion of the Irish to Christianity. Another legendary story is the use of the three-leaf shamrock to explain the Holy Trinity. Although there are no historical records of this, the symbol became so powerful that even today the shamrock is associated with St. Patrick and Irish identity. Besides the legends, there are also stories of miracles attributed to the saint. They say he raised the dead, converted powerful leaders, and had divine visions that guided him on his mission. Whether these are facts or traditions passed down through generations, one thing is for sure: St. Patrick left such a deep mark that his story continues to live on to this day. St. Patrick's impact was so great that even after his death on March 17th in the year 461, his memory was never forgotten. For centuries, the Irish celebrated this date with masses and processions to honor the saint who brought them their faith. But how did this celebration spread around the world? It all started with the Irish immigrants who brought their traditions to other countries, especially the United States. In the 18th century, cities like Boston and New York began organizing parades in honor of St. Patrick, and the tradition grew so much that today it has become a worldwide event. Famous monuments like Christ the Redeemer and the Eiffel Tower are lit up in green, and millions of people participate in the festivities. However, many have forgotten the true meaning of this day. More than parties and symbols, St. Patrick's Day should be a time to remember his mission and his example of faith. He wasn't just the patron saint of Ireland, but a great evangelist who gave his life to bring Christ to an entire nation. To celebrate St. Patrick is to celebrate the courage of those who hear God's call and answer with an unwavering yes. St. Patrick wasn't just a saint, but a true missionary who changed the history of an entire country. From a young man kidnapped and sold into slavery, he became the Apostle of Ireland, facing challenges, persecution, and even the threat of death to bring Christianity to a people who didn't yet know the truth. His story teaches us that God can transform any situation, even the most difficult ones, into something grand. He took a young man who seemed to have lost everything and used him to convert an entire nation. What if today God was calling you to something big? Would you have the courage to answer like St. Patrick? Now I want to know, did you already know this story? What surprised you the most in this saint's life? Comment down below, and if this video inspired you, go ahead and give it a like. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to keep receiving content about faith and the history of the great saints. See you in the next video. Do you want to understand the prophecies shaping the future of the world? In the ebook Catholic Prophecies, The Future of the World Revealed, you'll uncover powerful messages from the Bible, saints, and Marian apparitions. Most importantly, you'll see how they connect to the times we are living in. Don't be left in the dark. Get your copy now. The link is in the description and pinned comment.